I'm tired, bro. How are you guys doing? It's Friday. Feels like it's been about 5 years in the last week and a half. And oh boy, what a beginning to the year it's been. Been a lot of good, and possibly a lot of good on the horizon. There's been a lot of not so good, and a little bit of it remains to be seen. So today, I wanted to take a second. I'm going to get back to the voter issue videos, but I may just do a few of these. I just want to talk about some things that are on my mind. I really liked doing that last week. I'm going to put that in the description if you want to see my crash out session, talking about my frustration with the accelerationist ideas and the black pilling. But today what I wanted to do is, and you're going to have to forgive me, I'm a little scatterbrained. I usually have some notes that kind of at least lay out what I'd want to talk about and stay on track for the video. I was all over the place. I could not really focus in on any one thing. So I landed on, I wanted to give you guys, now that I've gotten a few videos under my belt here, and I'm starting to kind of shape what I want this channel to be, I want you guys to be able to understand where I'm coming from. Watching any of my videos, you know I consider myself a Christian, very devoutly so. And I am a staunch conservative, or, you know, whatever is past a conservative. I'm pretty extreme in my politics, and but I want to let you guys know how a little bit, you know, let you peek behind the curtain of my mind here, and to kind of understand where I'm coming from, what kind of shapes my worldview, and why I made this channel. Yeah. And that way you guys can have a better idea of who I am, and, you know, why I'm putting out the stuff, and kind of what my angle is, what my bias is. Because I'm going to be honest, man, as much as I may want to, at some points, try to be this, like, you know, reasoned, unbiased character, that's not me. I'm very opinionated. I don't think I could ever be neutral and unbiased, so I'm just going to be honest about what my biases are. So I took inspiration in part from Charlie Kirk, and I definitely consider myself affected by what happened to him. I think we're all affected to some degree, but where I kind of drew inspiration from him is in how much, and this is not to try to warp the faith, but how much your faith ought to shape your worldview in politics and in everything. I mean, if you are really, truly taking your faith seriously, you ought to try to carry that faith out into your public life. And we're not supposed to hide our faith. And my perspectives are going to be a little different than I think a lot of Christians, especially here in America, where there's just, I'm sorry, for lack of better terms, there's a lot of soft Christians, a lot of soft Christianity going on in this country right now. And that's not to say that we need to be warmongers. I'm not trying to say that. But, well, here's one thing to kind of give you an insight. So first of all, let's talk about my main thing, my main focus. I'm sorry, one sec. Like I told you, it's going to be a little scatterbrained. Why make this channel? Why try to start promoting the church? Why try to promote Christians getting involved in politics? And quite frankly, it's because I believe we're at war. And I mean that quite literally. I think this war is a little different than Americans are used to. I think we've obviously just seen a very clear display of American military might. But the kind of war I'm talking about is kind of an all-encompassing struggle. It's not just a military shooting war, a military conflict, though there may be instances of that. And it's not always physical. But we are in a spiritual war in this country right now. We have two sides that want very different things for this country. We're not at a point where everyone is just different shades of wanting the best for the country. I believe that the right largely loves this country as it was founded, as it came into being, and all the values that go with that. And the right largely loves the country as it is and wants to preserve that, the better parts of that, while, you know, changing some things for the better as we continue to march into the future. But by contrast, the left hates this country, or they hate things about it that they just perceive as morally twisted and evil. And we are seeing these two sides become more and more extreme. And I think a large part of why the left sees the United States that way is because they've largely become compromised by Marxism. And Marxism sees the world in this oppressor versus oppressed framing. It colors everything. Anything with the title critical theory attached to it, or anything that's an offshoot of critical theory, is a perfect example of this. For example, critical race theory. What do you see there? The white man is the oppressor. All the other racial groups are the minorities, are the oppressed. And so what we have to do from the leftist framing is we have to change society to make it more equitable, to make it a better place for all those other groups. And they usually won't admit this, but sometimes they will if they're being honest. Make it a worse place, or even punish. And some of the more extreme ones want to completely wipe out the white man. And you can take this basic framing and put it across multiple issues. So you have the male, the gender issue. What men are the oppressors, women are the oppressed. And now we've got not just women, but women and a million other things that people are just inventing all the time. And all of them naturally go into the oppressed category. And we have to reshape society so it is a better place for women and a worse place for men. And that also applies to matters of faith. Christianity is the bourgeois class here. Christians are the oppressors worldwide, which is ridiculous because Christians endure horrific persecution and have for all of our history, not necessarily in every place and every time, but it's certainly been common for Christians to struggle and to be persecuted. And B, Christianity has built the best societies on this planet. It has been a key fundamental ingredient in what has developed the West into the incredible civilization that it has been up until its current struggles. So not to keep beating that to death, but that's kind of what I mean. So what I literally wrote is, for my main point of why I'm making this channel, is we are at war with both foreign and domestic threats, and we must be willing to do hard things to win. And here's another key point. It is also not going to be over quickly. We must remain constantly vigilant. And really, I wanted to use the word eternally, but I thought that sounded maybe a little melodramatic. But I think everyone after the 24 election was just so tired, and they just wanted to believe that things were just going to be all put right in the matter of a year. And I think the administration can certainly has a lot more work to do. But I think they're on the right track for the most part. And I think they're at least responsive to us when we don't see them doing enough, or when they're going in the wrong direction. And we're not going to get everything we want. But I think for the first time in a long time, we have an administration that is actually trying to push things back the other way, and not just take us back into the past, but to take us forward, learning the lessons of the past, and to make corrections and to restore things that ought to be restored. So this is one of my big motivations. Why do I see the world that way? That we, right now, especially within the United States, that we're at war, and on many, many fronts. And part of that is because first of all, as a Christian, so this is really the most important thing, is as a Christian, I am already very familiar with the idea that I am already at war with my own flesh, with my own sin nature, and that is a lifelong struggle that I will never win. But luckily, not luckily, by God's grace, He has already won the battle for us, and it is my faith in Him that helps. Sorry, my nose itches. Sorry, just get that out of the way. And even though he is what provides eternal life, not my own efforts. I'm still called to struggle, to do good works while I'm here on this earth, because others will look at what I'm doing, this channel, and it may help shape their perception of Christianity and whether or not they want to become a Christian or remain a Christian or whatever. So the Christian faith shapes everything else. It all starts there. But after that, I care about my family and what's best for them. I feel an immense sense of duty to provide for them and to protect them. And then I care about my country. I'm extremely blessed to be born an American and to get to enjoy all the incredible privileges and advancements that we have, even today with all the chaos going on. Being an American is a rare privilege in life, and I care about this nation. I care about other Americans first, before any other nation. And I don't think that goes against biblical teaching. Because Jeremiah 29 talks about, the prophet is writing to the exiles in Babylon, because they were aching to come home. And he tells them, listen, you guys God's telling me to tell you that you need to build homes, you need to plant gardens, you need to settle in for the long haul. You need to, give your sons and daughter in marriage and keep your families going and grow and become more plentiful. And here's the key part, to pray for the nation in which you now live. Even though they have been your oppressors, to pray for them and hope for their well-being, because their well-being will in turn be your well-being. And if God was telling Israel to do that under Babylon, that was their oppressor, how much more should I as a Christian want that and want to work to promote and preserve the nation in which I live, that I was born to? That has been nothing but an immense blessing to me. Are there struggles? Are there things that are imperfect? Sure. But there is a great collection of factions on the left right now that wish to change that for the worse. I say that as a Christian, as all the things that they hate, a Christian, white male, all that stuff. I think that's going to lead to nothing but chaos and misery and destruction and the retreat of Christendom from the world. So, sorry, I thought somebody was pulling in here. And I'm kind of keyed to see things in kind of a war. And I do think, even if you aren't of this background, that this is the proper way to look. But it's not just the spiritual war aspect, but I was also a soldier. It makes me feel a little icky to have to get into the specifics of my credentials, so I don't want to do that all the time. But just for the sake of sharing a little bit more about myself. So I was in the Army for a brief time, for 4 years. I was a airborne infantry officer in the 82nd Airborne Division. And I spent about a year going through my training, and about 3 years actually in the unit doing my job, and had a deployment under my belt. That wasn't really a combat deployment. Spent 6 months of that as a liaison officer in Kuwait. They did pull me forward to serve as a battle captain in Iraq at Al-Assad Air Base for about 3 months. And it was pretty quiet when I was there. And then we bounced out, and that was it. That was the deployment. That was my glorious fight at the very tail end of the war on terror. And I will never sit here and try to pretend to be some valiant hero, some combat veteran. I guess I technically classify as a veteran, but I don't consider myself a combat veteran. I never directly exchanged fire with anybody. I had to worry about security for a time, sure, but it was a very brief time. And I would definitely never compare that to, soldiers that fought in Fallujah or Ramadi or Baghdad or, anywhere over in Afghanistan. There are so many more veterans that are so much better equipped, and this is so much more ingrained in them than it is me. But it has left a mark on me, and things just make more sense when I think about them from a kind of a battlefield perspective. Because in being an officer, I'm really grateful for that. getting to be a leader, because you're not just focused on kicking in the door. You are focused on kind of the larger picture of things. And I take that mentality and I kind of put it over a lot of when I watch the news. And it helps me understand, like, it helps me make more sense and think through the process of, why do I think, this is happening? Why do I think that person or that faction is doing this thing? And it's, well, because they have a goal in mind. It's not just always because people are stupid and just are flailing all the time. It's because they're working towards a goal. And right now we have the left working towards goals that I find horrific. So me making this channel is my small way of adding one more voice, one more right-wing voice to the chorus. I don't know how many people I'm going to reach. I'm going to do my best. I'm going to try to keep at this for a good long while. I would love for this to become something I do actually full-time, and I can actually put more effort into producing quality stuff. I've got big plans and lots of ideas that I would love to get into one day, but that's going to take time for that all to unfold. I can't do that all at once. So I'm just trying to be consistent here. And I've kind of got my two major angles of attack, which is, dealing with the faith and dealing with politics and current events. And that's in promoting, Christians getting, if nothing else, to set that minimum standard where Christians are expected to get out and vote, and to me, that's loving for them to do so. I think it's not loving to neglect that duty as a Christian. You should be, to me, it's a part of loving your neighbor in that you're casting a vote for something that you think is going to be good, or is at least going to restrain more evil by voting for that particular person or policy. And if you're not going to participate in that, you let everyone else who's voting against what is really your interest, you're letting those votes have more weight and possibly win the day. So that is why I care about getting Christians to be politically active. I am no Charlie Kirk. I don't really intend to be. I don't know that I'm necessarily going to go door to door or anything like that anytime soon. Who knows, maybe if there's a TPUSA chapter nearby, that might be something I get into one day. But I'm focused on putting things out on the internet right now, because particularly for young men, that is another major focus of my channel here. My little brother's 10 years younger than me. I'm 31 now. He is 21. And he and I are pretty close, and I know a good number of his friends. And right now, it's very hard to be a young man in this country. There's a lot expected of you. You get demonized a lot. And young men are showing an interest in the faith more so than young women right now. And I think that is a good sign, but they need to be guided. And I am no wise sage, but I have recently been through the process myself. And if I can be a brother or a friend to you and let you know that I've been through a lot of the struggles that you might be going through right now. And you know what? A lot of you guys are probably going through things way harder than what I've gone through. And I want to acknowledge that. But I also want to help point you in the right direction. Because on the right, to kind of give you an idea of where I would place myself, on the right you have kind of, I would say, what is just right of center is the neocons. So you got your Nikki Haley types, you got your Mitt Romneys, all those squish rhinos that I would not consider true conservatives, because they haven't conserved shit over the last, who knows how many years. They've kind of just been the left's lapdog and have only slowed things for a time and been controlled opposition. But you wade a little further into the right-wing waters, and eventually you come to MAGA. And this is where I would put kind of the left wing, or not the left wing. It's kind of what I would put the first limit of where I don't know my exact point on the spectrum, but probably on the autistic spectrum. But I would put the first limit of my window here is I am at least your run-of-the-mill MAGA. And I would probably take it over to somewhere and maybe plant it down right around Nick Fuentes, to be quite honest. And because I think my views are a little more extreme than the average MAGA voter. And I find Nick Fuentes hilarious a lot of the time. I think the fact that he just says things is entertaining. I can't take that from him. But I also think some of his solutions are absolutely horrific. I think he has some good ideas, but when I made a post kind of like this the other day. I agree with him on a lot, but the things I disagree with him on, I really disagree with him on. I would never, ever vote for Kamala Harris or anyone like her. I would quite literally rather die. And I noticed that, and that's kind of really starting to shape my path from here forward, especially after last week's video, when I really kind of had to confront the knowledge of what people like him want to do. You know, they claim to be right wing, but they're on this they're in line with this accelerationist idea where they're like, you know what, the right wing's not extreme enough, it's not doing enough, even though a lot is happening right now. They say nothing's really changing, so we need to go ahead and vote for the left to give them the keys to power again, so that we accelerate all this and, you know, get this show on the road, let the fires burn, let the system go belly up, and, you know, we're probably going to survive what the horrific things to come, and then we'll finally get the right to do what we want them to do. I think that is just a horrible, hateful way to go about things. I think we can have our times when we bicker amongst each other. I love the idea of getting these people kicked out through the primaries that are causing problems. And I know that's, you know, not been greatly successful, but I'm encouraged by the last week that people like Nick Fuentes and this clavicular dude are wrong, ultimately, because, I mean, I think the whole Venezuela thing, as dramatic as that was, as worried as people were that we were seeing the beginning of our new forever war, and I don't think that's going to be the case. God forbid. We're seeing that kind of, sorry, I'm tired, boss. After that, and we're starting to see some other things happening where Trump is talking about getting these big corporations out of buying homes, single-family homes, and that this should be which is a huge concern for the young groups here that are feeling a little unrepresented and feeling like their vote was wasted for Donald Trump. If that's something he actually follows through, and I really, really am praying he does, he seems like he's starting to move. I just saw he just told his administration to dump $200 billion into helping drop mortgage rates. I'm dumb when it comes to this stuff. I don't know how all that works. But what I'm getting at here is I think things are happening. I think there is a way to push for very significant policies that everyone on the left are going to call us all these horrible names for, without going the Nick Fuentes route of just absolute self-destruction and just hoping you survive what is to come. With that, I should probably start wrapping up this video. But again, I want to get into some of the other stuff I was writing notes about today. Kind of what I think this war looks like. I want to help kind of explain that a little more. Because I kind of think of it as like a Cold War. So, you know, we're not fighting the Soviet Union anymore. We're not in a competition with the Soviet Union. But funny enough, kind of the continuation is we are still very much fighting against Marxism and all the spin-off groups and ideologies that have sprouted out of that. We literally have Zoran Mamdani, a self-described socialist, and when you pay attention to his words, an actual communist, is the mayor of New York City right now and is starting to implement his policies. You have multiple congressmen in Congress on the Democratic side of the aisle that are card-carrying members of the Democratic Socialists of America, or at least were card-carrying members at one point. And socialism's becoming less and less of a dirty word. Yeah, it's just absolute chaos, and I'm rambling. So I appreciate you guys watching. That's kind of where I'm coming from. You know, Christ first, family, country. I want to help us in my own small way here to fight this war, to to help get information, usable, actionable information to you guys. You know, I'm not going to be able to function as like a journalist. That's not what I'm trying to do here. I'm just trying to give you my perspective on things. I think I've got some interesting takes on things. You know, that can be a little narcissistic, I guess, but I like how I think about things a lot of times. Not always the best spoken, but that's going to come with time. But yeah, so keep up the good fight, run the race, keep the faith, and I'm going to try to be a little better prepared next week. So it's probably going to be another week or two before I get back into a voter issue video. I'm probably going to continue this next week, talking about, you know, maybe starting to get into the details of what I think this struggle looks like and maybe who are the combatants here. But thank you very much for watching. I hope this was worth your time. If nothing else, man, I just want you to know you're not the only one. You're not crazy. I'm just an average dude here, just getting off his day job, coming in here to rant to his phone and then post it on the internet and let you guys be the judge of whether I'm worth your time or not, or if I should just stick to my day job. But thank you. God bless you guys, and we will talk to you next time.